You know, I think we all ask this question at some point. What is the central idea of Islam? I mean, really, beyond all the rituals, all the rules, what does it actually want from a person? It's a question I've honestly wrestled with my whole life. And in this explainer, I thought, hey, let's try and find an answer together.
And it really boils down to this one question, right? Why am I a Muslim? Now, the answers we usually get, the ones passed down through generations or the ones you hear from a podium, they can feel a little, unsatisfying. Like, they don't really get to the heart of it, do they?
I mean, you hear things like, our purpose is to establish God's law on earth. Okay, but what does that even mean day to day? Or, we're here to spread peace and coexistence. That's a great goal, for sure, but is that the central mission? Then you get the bigger ideas. Are we supposed to be building a caliphate? Or just, sit around and wait for the Mahdi? Or maybe the complete opposite, just check out and live in isolation? See, each of these answers feels like just one piece of a giant puzzle, not the whole picture.
So, to get past these cliches, let's try something different. I want you to imagine my friend Joe. Now, Joe isn't a Muslim, and he's the kind of guy who isn't afraid to ask those really direct, unfiltered questions. He looks at the world, he looks at us, and he's just like, okay, explain it to me, what's this all for? What's the actual deal you're signing up for? And you know what? His perspective is great because it forces us to explain everything right from square one.
All right, so to answer Joe, we have to start at the very beginning. The most fundamental relationship in Islam, the one between a human and God. You can think of it like a contract. And right off the bat, we hit a concept that honestly, from a modern point of view, is going to sound, well, pretty strange.
Think about it. In any human contract, any deal you make, it has to be fair, right? Both sides have to get something out of it. But this divine contract in Islam, by our standards, it's completely unfair. And here's why. There's only one winner in this deal, and that's you. God's kingdom doesn't get bigger if you believe, and it doesn't shrink if you don't. The entire benefit, 100% of it, flows in just one direction, straight to us.
And this leads us to a really important word, abd. Now, it's usually translated as servant or even slave, and I know that sounds really bad, but in the Islamic worldview, it's the highest honor you can possibly have. It's not about being subjugated. In fact, it's the exact opposite. It means you are liberated from being a slave to everything else, to money, to your boss, to your own ego, to what society expects of you. It means you have a direct line, no middlemen, to the creator of everything. It's not a title of slavery, it's a title of ultimate freedom.
Okay, so this is where my friend Joe would jump right back in. He's smart, so he'd say, hang on, if this whole deal is just for your benefit and God doesn't actually need you, then why create humanity in the first place, especially, he'd add, if he already had creatures worshiping him perfectly? He'd be like, look, I've heard you guys say you were created to worship. Fine, but what about the angels? Don't they worship God 24/7 without ever messing up? They literally can't disobey. So, what do you guys bring to the table that the angels don't already provide? And you know what? That is a fantastic question.
And here's the answer. It's the absolute core of everything. Our worship is special precisely because it's not pre-programmed. It comes from free will, from choice, from struggle. It comes from falling down flat on our face and then choosing to get back up again. See, angels, they offer perfection. But humans, we offer a story.
And that story, that's where everything clicks. Our flaws, our mistakes, our very imperfections. They're not a bug in the system, they're a feature. They are the very things that allow God's most beautiful names and attributes to be made real in the world. Think about it. Our weakness calls upon His strength. Our desperate pleas call upon His incredible generosity. And when we mess up and we turn back to Him, we allow His name Al-Tawwab, the one who always accepts repentance, to shine. Our prayers make His name Al-Mujib, the one who answers, a reality. Angels can't do that. Our messy, complicated, imperfect lives are exactly what makes our worship so profound.
Okay, that makes sense for us. But what about the prophets? What was their mission? Now, the story we often hear is that they came to, warn all the bad guys and call down fire and brimstone. But that's a huge misunderstanding of what they were actually here to do.
Let's be absolutely crystal clear on this. Prophets were not sent to defend God. God does not need defending. Let me say that again. God doesn't need defending. They were sent to defend and liberate us, humanity, from ourselves. They showed up when people were destroying each other, when societies had turned into these brutal cages of oppression.
And if you want to understand their mission, you have to look at the enemies they fought. The Quran gives us these three timeless villains, these archetypes of corruption that show up again and again throughout history. First, you've got Pharaoh, the tyrant who enslaves people with politics and raw power. Then there's Qarun, the mega-capitalist who enslaves people through wealth and the economy. And finally, you have Balaam, the corrupt religious scholar who twists knowledge to enslave people's minds. The mission of a prophet, like Moses, who by the way had to face down all three of them, was to shatter these chains of tyranny.
Now, it's easy to look at names like Pharaoh, Qarun, and Balaam and think, okay, that's ancient history. What does that have to do with me? But they're not history. They are alive and well today. They just wear different suits and have different titles. And this brings us to a really, really important question. How does this kind of evil actually stick around?
Well, the philosopher Hannah Arendt gave us a really chilling answer. See, after she herself fled Nazi Germany, she went to Jerusalem to cover the trial of a top Nazi officer named Adolf Eichmann. This was the guy who organized the logistics of the Holocaust, the trains, the schedules. She went there expecting to come face to face with a pure, diabolical monster.
But what she found was, somehow, so much worse. Eichmann wasn't some raving lunatic foaming at the mouth with hatred. He was normal. Terrifyingly, depressingly normal. He was just a bland, thoughtless paper pusher. His main motivation wasn't some grand, evil ideology. It was just getting a promotion. He organized the deaths of millions of people simply to be good at his job, to be seen as an efficient employee. Arendt coined a phrase for this that should send a shiver down your spine: the banality of evil.
And this right here reveals a terrifying truth about how the world works. Evil doesn't actually need a bunch of true believers to succeed. It just needs beneficiaries. It needs people who benefit from the corrupt system, people who are content to just do their jobs, like Eichmann. But good is a different story. Good is demanding. Good needs believers. It needs people with real conviction, people willing to make sacrifices, people willing to stand up for what's right, even when, especially when, it's going to cost them something.
So, let's bring this all home. We've talked about this unfair contract with God, our unique purpose as humans, and this chilling idea of the banality of evil. So now we can finally go back to Joe's original question. What does Islam actually want from you?
Here's the bottom line. It doesn't just want you to perform rituals on autopilot. That's not the goal. The goal is to build a certain type of human being. It wants you to be a person of deep principle, a noble human being with a living, breathing conscience, a conscience that makes it impossible for you to stay silent when you see injustice, whether that injustice comes from a modern-day Pharaoh, a Qarun, or a Balaam.
And to become that person, you have to understand the nature of this life. Think of this world like a really nice hotel. It's beautiful, it's captivating, you can absolutely enjoy your stay, but you can never, ever forget that it's temporary. You're not moving in for good. And one day, that phone in the room is going to ring, and it's going to be the front desk with your checkout call, and you have to be ready.
Here's another way to think about it, a really powerful metaphor: the mirror. This life, this world, is like a giant mirror. And in it, we see this beautiful reflection of ourselves, our job title, our bank account, our ego, our reputation. And what happens? We fall in love with the reflection. We completely forget it isn't the real thing. Then, at the moment of death, it's like a stone gets thrown and shatters that mirror into a million pieces. And in that instant, the illusion is gone. And for the very first time, we see what was real all along, our true self, with all those worldly attachments stripped away.
So, when you put it all together, you realize something. The true test of a person's faith, it isn't really found in how well they perform rituals inside a mosque. It's found out there, in the marketplace, in the office, in the halls of power, at home with your family. The real test comes in that moment of crisis, when you're faced with a choice. Are you going to stand up for what's right, or are you going to quietly become another beneficiary of a broken system?
So I'll leave you with this final thought, this final question to ask yourself. Why are you a Muslim? Is your faith in Islam of a living, awakened consciousness, one that acts as a force for justice in the world? Or is it an Islam of mirrors, one that's just fallen in love with its own temporary reflection? That choice, in the end, is yours and yours alone.